Well, after my story in Fort Collins, I was diagnosed with complex PTSD. I'm haunted by the things that happened to me. It took my sleep. It took my feeling of safety in my own house. I don't feel comfortable being in this town. I don't feel comfortable driving in this town. When I'm in the open in this town, walking the dog, for example, I'm on edge, pretty vigilant. But no, I've been a pretty fine and sane and normal and rational human being my whole life.
So prior to the incident in Fort Collins, which we'll get into and is the purpose of this interview, you had no mental or emotional concerns?
No. No, I was trying to learn to live a life as a disabled man within the limits that my disability imposed. But I was doing okay. There were a number of activities when I had my life-giving lenses, my fluid-filled prosthetic lenses, a number of activities that I can engage in. I couldn't really do anything regularly. I couldn't really do anything predictably. For the most part, I couldn't do the same thing 2 days in a row. I certainly couldn't do it as much or as long as I wanted. But I had a kind of a buffet of options that I could pick and choose from that gave me a life, and I was trying to push the limits out farther. So, you know, nobody that gets declared disabled or has their eyes chemically burned is happy. But I was okay. I was okay.
I cover the complex PTSD because a lot of people who have interactions with the judicial system in Larimer County are suffering from PTSD.
Karen Kuffler, you ever hear that name?
Mm-hmm.
I might have even emailed it to you. Legal abuse syndrome, that's her thing. There's a guy named Gary Solomon, who was a professor of psychology for 40 years in Nevada, who got into a bad spot with his HOA. And then he started doing research, and he calls it HOA abuse syndrome, right? Luckily, I don't have to choose. I get both.
Mm-hmm.
But I would imagine that in any system where there's the inequity that we talk about, where people feel targeted, and it's not that they feel powerless, you know this, they are powerless. Unless you happen to be born rich. You are powerless. If they get you in their sights, they don't let go. They don't apologize, they don't, you know, Gilmore and Masters, and somebody gets a ceremonial firing and they move on. And everybody that I've talked to in any of these little worlds, whether it's the legal abuse or the HOA abuse, says the same thing. I can't sleep. I'm terrified. I wouldn't leave my house. My story was far from unique. I had a sleep study overnight, PVH sleep study. It's like 6 different phases to sleep, and you got to go through them all and in the right order and in the right amount. And the big one is what they call stage 3 non-REM sleep. Stage 3 non-REM is when your batteries get charged. Since you have a dead battery. Your average person gets 90 to 100 minutes of that a night. I got 3. So if you just plugged in your iPhone for 3 minutes a day, what do you think would happen?
That's a great analogy, actually, to help people understand what that means.
And stage 3 is what goes away in PTSD. The problem with the PTSD thing is we are still working on fire and the wheel. And as soon as, oh, PTSD, and the guy got a gun, no wonder the neighbor. The stigma is huge. But one of the things that's crucial to this side of my story, the side that Stacy's looking into, is the same thing that's crucial to my experience with Dr. Rosenthal. The harm that you can do to a person or a patient when you don't believe them is immeasurable. It's profound, it's permanent, it's holistic. You can hurt them in every aspect of their life. And it turns out that what happened in this town was, you don't look like there's anything wrong with you, so we assume you're lying.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I think, Neil, that's a lesson that certainly, if we can get this story out, that will certainly translate across all aspects of medicine. I mean, not just, like you say, not just the eye, but anything where a physician says, I don't believe you. Or has their mind made up, or has another master